It's Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life. Hey, this is DC Marshall, and I am here with my co-host, and he is
Alfred Edmond Jr.
And if you've been listening to the podcast, you know this is a show about faith and finances. We talk about everything in between, particularly for our culture. And we have amazing guests on the show, but also we bring on guests who are thought leaders, who have interesting stories. They are big and great and grand contributors in culture, everything from financial wellness and financial wealth experts to entrepreneurs to community leaders and so on and so forth. And so, we're excited about today's show. Alfred, do you want to introduce our guest?
Well, I want to at least, talk a bit about her and this topic, because this is right up your alley, D. I'm going to be riding shotgun because we're talking about where can I find the support that Black women entrepreneurs need. And the theme is vision for women entrepreneurs. And we got a great guest, none other than Dr. Cameka Smith, founder, CEO of the Boss Network. She'll be joining us when we come right back. You're listening to Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life.
It's Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life. And we are back. And on today's show, we're talking about vision for women entrepreneurs. Alfred, I know you love the topic because you're a big fan of women, of course.
And a geek for entrepreneurship. So you got two of my favorite topics.
Two of your favorite topics. Yeah. So did you want to say something about?
Well, I mean, some people are calling it the year of the Black woman, but we know it's not just this year. The fastest growing entrepreneurial population, probably for now the last 6 or 7 years, has been Black women entrepreneurs. New business startups are up by 30% compared to pre-pandemic years, a 20% increase in active Black female business owners. This is a trend that we've been tracking. I know your company, Diverse and Engaged, my employer, Black Enterprise. This is a trend that you almost have to be living under a rock not to know about. Yeah. But at the same time, we're talking about other things that aren't still are issues for Black women entrepreneurs in particular, including access to capital. 61% of Black women entrepreneurs self-fund their businesses. You can say on the one hand, it's good that they're willing to put their own skin in the game. But on the other hand, there's huge inequities. For example, less than 1% of Black female entrepreneurs receive venture capital. So there's a definite imbalance here, D. You got this fastest growing entrepreneurial group, but the capital is not necessarily flowing their way. So the guest we have on for today is, again, we say this every show because it's true every show. We have the perfect person to talk about this topic. But this person is like many of our guests on Be Lifted Up, people that Dee and I have known, admired, loved what she's doing for a very, very long time. Listen, why don't we just bring her in? Enter the Boss Network founder, Dr. Cameka Smith, speaker, investor, entrepreneur, and talk about a champion for Black women entrepreneurs. It's hard to imagine anybody who does more.
Listen, I'm just smiling from ear to ear because I feel like I'm with family right now. It's like my auntie and my uncle. So, it's just been a busy season. So to be able to see you all faces and share this platform with y'all, I'm excited to be here.
Awesome.
Cameka, there's no one, and I'm here talking to the two women that I know and who are the most passionate about, not Black women as, laggards or struggling, but who are leading the charge, who are setting the standard for what successful entrepreneurship is in America. Both you and Dee are living representations, but you also are champions of Black women entrepreneurs. So it's always like an honor to talk to just one of you. I get to host a show with Dee, but also, I'm a big and long-time admirer of what you do. Why don't we start with, letting our audience know about the Boss Network, what it is, how it came to be, and what it does even today.
Wow. So this won't be new for you all because you and Dee have been champions and mentors of mine for, goodness, probably almost 15 years, which is crazy to say because I feel still like I'm 20, but you know, hey. But the Boss Network became about because I have always been an entrepreneur, and I think most entrepreneurs feel that way, right? You have that entrepreneurial spirit. It was something that was always kind of a part of my DNA. My mom was an entrepreneur. Probably didn't think she was an entrepreneur, but she was like what our community calls a hustler. You know, she had multiple things that she did to support the family. She was an amazing hairstylist. She did braids. She cooked church, sold dinners at the church. You know, she was just an amazing leader. And so I picked up a lot of that hustle mentality and that servanthood from her. And so I, graduated from college, went into my career as an educator. That was something that was important to me because I grew up in the inner cities of Chicago. And I saw a lot of my peers, just kind of take different paths. And so my mom was one of those people who really exposed me to a lot of different things outside of our community, as well as my church. They were a huge instrument into who I am. My pastor was an amazing leader, my first lady, who's one of my biggest mentors. They really taught us as young kids to dream bigger than the block. And that was what they exposed us to. And so my mom, she, just gave us opportunities to travel and to see different things. And it was amazing. So we grew up in a certain neighborhood, but our experiences, and even where I went to high school, I took 2 trains and 2 buses to high school every day. So that'll tell you the commitment my mom has to making sure that we had better opportunities, being able to travel, not that I wanted to. I would have been fine going to a high school in my neighborhood, but she wasn't having it. And so she worked on the north side of Chicago at a shelter with nuns. And she wanted me to go to high school in the neighborhood. And so that's what we did. And so the Boss Network came about because when I graduated from college, I was excited about my career in education. Working with young people was something that I was always excited to do, but there was something else in me that wanted to kind of, be independent and have another creative outlet. And so I started an event marketing company here in Chicago, and I became quickly what they call now as an influencer, back then a brand ambassador. And so I worked for brands like Nike and BMW and Crown Royal, doing like social events in Chicago because I was, kind of popular. I know a lot of people. And from there, I decided I wanted to launch my own boutique marketing firm. Well, I mean, a lot of women at that time did not have their own businesses. So me trying to network and figure out how to do it wasn't easy. And a lot of people I was networking with really just saw me like as a pretty girl. It wasn't really taking me serious. So it was like, okay, I'll figure this out on my own. And so back in 2009, as you all know, that time, it was a huge recession. And I got laid off. And honestly, I didn't really, I wasn't really kind of upset about the situation. I was at the time probably 29. And I was like, well, I've been working since I was like 14 years old. So I can get a break and get unemployment. I'll take it, And so I just decided I was going to take a year off to, follow my passion, which was my business. I don't think at the time I thought that I would never go back to work. It was just like, let me put some energy into this, have some time to just be free, backpack as they say, but I wasn't backpacking, and just figure it all out. And so I decided to launch a series for women called Boss, which was just an event because I just wanted to really start to have a conversation. And honestly, it was selfish because I wanted to learn. So I felt like if I create this platform and I can invite women to talk about entrepreneurship, I can learn from them. And it kind of just took a life of its own. And that's how the Boss Network was born.
See, I didn't know, I don't think I knew that the acronym for BOSS. See, I think Boss and Black women, I don't need an acronym. It just goes together for me. But BOSS, now that you talk about the evolution of this event, bringing out successful sisters. That was your goal at that initial event. And that turned into BOSS.
Yeah, and you have to imagine Chicago's a huge city, probably 3rd largest city in the country. And so I had already been known for like doing these big events with like, record labels like Def Jam and celebrities like Jay-Z. And so I had already kind of created a lane for myself, but I was trying to switch over because I just, in my mind, felt like, well, I'm not about to be doing this, in my 40s, throwing parties. So I want to boss up, and I wanted people to know this is not a party. This is for women to talk about business. So the acronym was my way of telling a story, bringing out successful sisters. Brothers, y'all can't come. We not dating. This is business.
I love it. And, women, we need that kind of clarity in terms of what this is and what this isn't. And so I love hearing the story. Yes, I consider myself a godmom / auntie to the Boss Network and Cameka, the doctor. You all know her as Dr. Cameka Smith, but we've known each other for so long. And I appreciate, respect what you have done and are doing. So this is so super sweet. I want to go back.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? And also, I want to applaud you for acknowledging the backstory and your mom. You know, it's just that our moms may not have done it in the way that we are, and we are our moms and our ancestors' wildest dreams. And I know your mom would be super proud. In fact, as we go to break, you know, I know you lost your mom and you were very close. And as you were telling the story, if I was silent, because I was just like thinking she'd be so proud. And I love that how you honored your mom. You anchor the story in. My mom was an entrepreneur, not in the way that you know, not in the way that she was a CEO of a company, but baby, she wanted the best. She did the best. So I love the story because it also encourages somebody listening right now. It encourages that person, or it encourages them to tell the real story about, you know, the mentor, the advisor, versus you don't have to identify it. It may not have been, is not Oprah. No, it was your mom. It was your mom. It's okay. Like all of that has its space. And so super excited about hearing the story and spending some time with you. So we're going to go to break, and then we're going to come back on the other side and talk about the real numbers in terms of the state of Black women-owned businesses. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So we will be right back. It's Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life. It's Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life. I'm DC Marshall. He's Alfred Edmond Jr. And we're back. We're talking about women, Black women business owners. And we have a special guest, one of my dear hearts. She's amazing. Y'all know her. If you're listening, y'all know the Dr. Cameka Smith. Y'all know the Boss Network. Before there were all of the other Boss Networks, I kid you not, I'm a godmom auntie to the Boss Network. There was, this Boss Network is 14 years young, and it was founded by the Dr. Cameka Smith, who just shared a beautiful story about her being educated, being an educator, telling a story about her dear sweet mom, God rest her soul, and how she was an entrepreneur and inspired her. And so now, Dr. Smith, I want to talk about the state of Black women business owners. We started setting up the show with the fact that, you know, Black women business owners are the fastest and largest growing segment of entrepreneurs. We know there's probably about 12 million in the country, but 2.7 million Black women. But Black women don't do as well when it comes to revenue generating entities. So I really want to talk about what you're doing, how you survived, because I've told people very honestly, you know, I'm the CEO at Diverse and Engaged. If it were not for the diversity tipping point, which is the period beginning May of 2020, it's unfortunate, but I don't know that my company would have survived, because our clients were corporate and they scaled down every single thing. And so let's start with the state of your business and the state of Black women businesses. However you want to jump in here, I really want to get real with where we are and why some of us are really thriving right now, right? Having the biggest and best season, and then some didn't make it. So what do you want to share about the state of Black women business owners?
I mean, you said it so well, Dee. And what I know, not what I think, is that I look at, you know, of course, Black Enterprise, Alfred Edmond, you know, this being a historical brand, a brand that I looked up to, one who supported me and gave me my first platform and opportunity to speak when I was first starting out. You know, it was not by chance, because I know that this is also a podcast about faith, right? So it's not by chance that all the work that we have done up until this point, it was for such a time as this. And so even though in that season, we saw things changing, God knew that we were already planting seeds. And so it's just harvest time. And so I don't count it, you know, by chance that, you know, during the pandemic, my business as well thrived more than it's ever thrived before, because I'd already been doing the work. I'd already laid the platform. I already knew that Black women were it, you know, 15 years ago, before people thought it was popular, before people wanted to support it, before people, when I first got into Forbes within my first year, told me to change it to all women, not just Black women. And I said, no, this is what God told me to do. I know that we need it. There's plenty of networks for white women in general market and others, but we didn't have a space. And so I knew that it was important for me to kind of make a niche market for myself and focus on us, because I knew it's what I needed, right? And so I feel like when we, as people of faith, follow our vision and follow what God is leading us to do, we cannot fail. And so what I did was, like most of us, there was probably a couple of months of like, whoa, this is real, this pandemic. Brands are not supporting, they're putting out statements, but they're falling back on the investment. But I said, this is the opportunity for me to level up and do something more creative in a space and opportunity where I feel like people who are really serious about what they're putting out there as far as statements, they will show up. And that's what we were able to do with the Boss Impact Fund and the Boss Network in this season.
And so share about the fund. Tell us, what is the Boss Impact Fund?
Yes. So of course, we all know during the pandemic, a lot of businesses struggled to just even stay afloat. Some of these struggles were probably prior to the pandemic, but of course, COVID just made it just impossible to get support, get access to your customers. And so for me, I had already, told myself after completing my 10th year anniversary that, I have been inspiring, motivating, pushing women. It's only so much of that you can do until you start to feel depleted, because you want to see people grow. And if you don't have money, you have a glorified hobby in a business. It is not a business. And so I said, what can I do to level up not only my network and my impact, but also help these women in this season? And so that's when I was able to, something I have been already thinking about for the last 5 years. But of course, when you're busy, you're traveling and you're doing all this work, sometimes the things that you really need to do get left behind. But because I wasn't traveling, I was just sitting at my computer like everyone else and at home, it allowed me to really go deeper into that vision. And so I launched the Boss Impact Fund to create initially COVID relief grants, because I also saw how access to the PPP loans were not being available for African Americans in that first round, which was very disappointing because we are the community that needed the most with our businesses. And so I decided to launch this impact fund to not only provide grants for entrepreneurs, but then also to give them access to training and development and coaching and mentoring, because that's how you really grow and develop.
So talk a bit about, you talk about their environment, and I think a lot of Black-owned businesses, including Black enterprise, experience the same thing. You had that, let's say 2 to 3 months between, I'll say April and June of 2022, yes. 2020, where it's like everything shut down and you're like, literally, oh my God,
right?
What are we going to do? But as you said about if you kept your head up, if you kept your mind stayed on God and your faith and your belief, what you realize is that all the pretenders kind of fell off.
Yes.
And the only ones that were left were the ones that were at least going to try to be serious about doing something about it. And those are the ones that, in our case, continue to advertise and do business with Black enterprise, find ways to do that. I imagine those are the ones that you were able to say, oh, these are the people I need to contact about contributing to this fund, because as time went by in 2020, and we saw a lot of performative statements about, we want to stand against systemic racism, but then it came time to put money behind
where your mouth is.
It was much easier, and indeed, you work in the space even more closely than I do, to tell who was serious and who was pretending. And in a way, it did you a favor. You didn't have to go through like 1,000 different prospects.
Absolutely.
You was like, oh, God, you already put aside the 900 who I don't even need to spend my time and resources talking to, and separated the 100 or so that now I can say, these are the ones I'm going to talk to. I mean, is that what you kind of discovered? I know that's what happened with us at Black Enterprise. We literally was like, you know what? This prospect list, we don't have enough time and resources to talk to all these people anyway. Let's just talk to the ones we know who are really trying to do this. And it was a big turning point in terms of coming through the pandemic and out of the pandemic.
I mean, you hit it right on the head, Alfred, because the reality was I did not, of course, when we're in business, we're pitching and, talking to different clients. Some of these are, cold calls, some of these are warm leads or whatever you want to call it, like sales. But the reality was I went to those that I already had relationship with. And that's why relationships matter so much, because I went to those that I had already done work with, that knew my commitment, my history in business. And, I said, hey, I'm thinking about doing something bigger that will have a huge impact on Black businesses. You all know what's going on right now. I did my research. I got the numbers. I created a pitch deck. And I was able to have those conversations, and it really opened the door to have a deeper conversation, because we all know the sponsorship game and the corporate, partnership game, especially for African Americans, our minority multicultural budget is very limited, right? But I said, as an entrepreneur, I worked my off for the last 15 years. Whether I'm asking for $100,000 or $1 million, the work is still the same. And so at this point, I got nothing to lose. I got 10 years in the game. I deserve to level up this business, and I can make this ask because I know that it's possible. And so when I went and I launched this $10 million fund, my ask was $1 million. I was like, listen, I need money. And so I just went to those and had conversations with people that were serious. And that's how we, got our first $2 million investment.
Wow. Well, 10 million, we want to stick it right there, because it's $10 million fund, but it's not just the fund. As you know, it's not just about capital. We want to come back. We want to talk about Boss Business University. We want to talk about the SAGE Invest in Progress grant program. And as we go deeper into our conversation, talk about ways that both existing entrepreneurs and new entrepreneurs can engage with the Boss Network. You're listening to Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life. I'm here, Alfred Edmond Jr. with DC Marshall. We're here with the one and only Boss Network founder and leader, Dr. Cameka Smith, and we will be right back.
It's Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life, and we are back. And so before we went to the break, Cameka, so much of what you said was such a powerful story, a curriculum of sorts, a best practice, a case study. And that is from a number of different perspectives, the tenacity of Black people, of our culture, of Black women, but Black women, but also people of faith. The fact that, we were at the beginning of disruption in the earth, right, with regard to the pandemic. And I love what you said about really just doing an environmental scan, like looking at, what you have, what you've done, and what you needed to do to survive. And what I love about your story is you leverage your platform, your network, your experience, your everything to serve other people. And so, and what a lot of people don't understand, so I'd love to hear you chime in on this, what a lot of people don't understand about in business is when you help enough people get what they want, you get what you want. And I think people don't get that, because I'm listening to your story and the shift, because I feel like this is probably Boss. I'm thinking, wait, is this Cameka's Boss 2.0 or 3.0? Like there's been iterations.
I think it's probably 3.0.
3.0. This is your 3.0. And the fact that you said, you know what, I really want to help others. And that is what we should do, and how it is that as you give and you're funding and you're seeding other businesses, this is a social impact play. So talk a little bit about that in terms of you supporting other businesses, and then some of the other ways that you're supporting businesses with the resources, with other platforms, with other, I'm going to say entry points for your entire platform and community.
So before I get there, it was a lot of people asked me during that time, how were Black entrepreneurs doing during COVID? And I said, from my conversations, yes, there was an aspect around the financial, but I feel like a lot of us thrived during that season. And as Alfred mentioned, a lot of entrepreneurs actually decided to become entrepreneurs during the pandemic as well. Because one thing about our community, our ancestors, we're used to being under pressure. We're used to having to show up when things get tough. And so, it is not by chance that we are thriving as entrepreneurs as a segment in this country, because we're used to having a foot on our neck. That's how we do things the best. And so for me, that just drives me to want to do more. And you also mentioned the servant part, because I consider myself a servant leader. And I truly believe that my blessing comes from blessing others. And God told me a long time ago, through my fasting and praying, that if I just trusted and I believed in him and I followed the vision that he had for me, that he would take care of me. And he has not disappointed me in any way. And so I do believe that, my community's growth has been my growth. And the more I support them, the more I see myself growing. And it has been an amazing sisterhood of sorts, with these thousands of women, just to see them be successful and to see what they have done. And sometimes I think back, historically, like, wow, if I did not start the Boss Network 15 years ago, how many women, if I did not follow the path that God had for me and was obedient to the call, how many women would have missed out on being entrepreneurs or even believing in themselves because of me not, staying true to who I am. And I do believe that our dreams are all connected. So when we get up in the morning and do what God has called us to do, that gives other people opportunity to do what they're called to do from seeing what you're doing. So I just say that to say that I think that's really important, but the Boss Impact Fund, and the reason I call it an impact fund, because I was very clear that I wanted to make sure that we had impact and we were not just, throwing out grants. I saw a lot of people just, putting out grant money and not really having real investment in these entrepreneurs, because as you all know, the money part is just the beginning. If you don't know how to manage your money is a mindset, right? If you don't know how to scale, you're not going to grow, and so we knew that it was important to add the mentorship, add the coaching. And so we created, additional partnerships with brands like JP Morgan Chase, AT&T, who allowed us to leverage their resources, because again, I'm still a small business, right? And so our first round of grants, we got over 15,000 applications in 30 days. And right. And so that showed you the huge need. And we only had 35 grants to give away at that point. Well, actually 25, but we added 10 more because we saw that there was a huge need there. But, I had a conversation with one of my grant winners the other day, and, she was talking about once she got the grant, how she felt overwhelmed and she kind of hid. And that happens to a lot of us, right? Once we see the success that we want, we get a little afraid. And I said, now, this is not the time to get afraid. This is the time to boss up, because it is not by chance that you, out of 12,500 people, got this grant, so you got to believe in yourself and be your biggest cheerleader. And it is because of people like DC Marshall, people like Alfred Edmond, who I went to for wise counsel during this journey, that allowed me to be able to believe in myself even more. We need a community. We need support. And so, that's super important. And that's what we're offering, this kind of like holistic approach with the Boss Impact Fund.
Cameka, I'm currently serving as one of the mentors for Black Ambition, Pharrell's Black Ambition program. And what they're trying to accomplish underscores what you just said. When you talk about wealth creation, there's this mythology of the lone, kind of genius rule breaker who, breaks through and does something different. But the reality is that wealth creation communities are in fact communities. They're people sharing resources, ideas, and solutions. And one of the reasons I've always admired you, and I'm sure Dee feels the same way since we've known you since the beginning of your journey. I want to restate something else that you said earlier, kind of as matter of factly, but I want to underscore it. Boss Network not only was one of the original, Black women entrepreneurial networks, it spawned other networks either directly or inspired the creation. So yeah, in 2022, you can go to any state in the union practically and find a group of Black women entrepreneurial networks. But you got to understand, back 15 years ago, so when you talk about being a servant leader and creating this sense of community, it was not just supporting the creation of other businesses. It was reinforcing this idea that we can go a lot further together and in collaboration. So the Boss Network is really kind of a foundational network for something that we take for granted today. That we just say, yeah, of course, I'm a member of this, I'm a member of that, and I go to these meetings, and I go to these conferences. Especially you see it on social media, on Instagram, every other day. There's
every other day, right?
But wow. Boss Network really was a pioneer, and I'm speaking as a veteran of Black enterprise. This is what we do. We study these trends, and so this idea of that it takes community to build wealth, and that yes, you can get the grant, you can get the loan, you can even get the investment, but the real thing that Black women in particular and Black people in general have been locked out of is these networks.
Yes.
If you can get into the network, the money, you'll get money.
Yep.
Right.
It's not, there's money out there. It's the fact that we've been excluded from these networks and conversations. And I know, Dee, with your work with Diverse and Engaged, and even beyond Diverse and Engaged, Dee has been doing nothing but like knocking down barriers and tunneling here
Yes.
and connecting the dots there, to empower this particular group of women of color entrepreneurs. And
Let's talk about that, Alfred, because let's be real. The culture that we live in America kind of has put Black people in a position to where they wanted us to be the one and only, right? In corporate America, there could be the token Black person, right? When it comes to being successful business owners, there could only be one. And so it was this idea of like, I got to make it for me and mine, because that's just how the community and the world kind of pushed us. And so for me, it felt like, what I saw within my church, the power of community and the power of working together and the power of supporting. And so I wanted to create something that was similar. And then of course, my college experiences watching, sororities and fraternities, the Greek culture, that spawned me and inspired me as well. And so I knew the importance of working together. And I've seen it, like you said, just kind of expound, because it didn't exist when I started it. There was Black Enterprise, the National Urban League, and a few other historical brands that were creating communities for Black people, but there was not these individual brands popping up showing support, and that's what I wanted to create. So I appreciate that, because it was something that I felt like was important, especially for my particular age group. And it's been amazing. It's been an amazing journey.
Yeah. And before we go to break, I'll just anchor in what you created, because I am thinking about what Alfred just mentioned. And I think even some of the relationships that people have now, how did they come to know and meet? And I think about years ago, like where I would have been at a boss event and such. So you have done such an amazing job. And you know what? You've done an amazing job of being a good steward of God's resources. And so on the other side of the break, we're going to come back and we'll talk a little bit more. We are here with Dr. Cameka Smith. She is the founder of the Boss Network and basically founder and investor in our communities and Black culture. Come on, Black girl, come on, boss. And so we'll be right back. It's Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life. And before we went to break, I was actually thinking about what you said, Alfred, about Cameka, about Dr. Smith, and a pioneer of sorts, right? And I was sitting here thinking, I'm like, yeah, I think so. And also not just what you said, but also in creating spaces for us to have a global network, Cameka, a national network, where Cameka could be in Chicago, I could be based in New York Metro. And I'm thinking about when I might have been on a panel or connected in DC, and probably Doreen, who's in Virginia. And so, it's what Alfred said about what you created, but also you created and contributed to our national network. Like we have a solid sister girl network of Black women who are doing a darn thing, and we support each other. And so now I will say not everybody plays at the same level, but I think we're responsible in supporting that. And what I mean by that is because Dr. Cameka and I, we've shared the same partners and sponsors. We do big business with corporate. And we literally will get on planes, trains, and automobiles to support each other. We have. And so, Cameka, that's why you earned this, right? You deserve it. So for the big brands who invested to fund your $10 million fund, oh no, you work for that. So people don't understand, we had been prior to the pandemic already doing deals with big brands. We were already doing deals with Fortune 10. So I really just wanted to also amplify the platform and the community that you created for relationships that even I probably have, because I went to either speak or support you. And then, I probably met her at some event. Oh, it's probably Cameka's event. Right. And then the last part of, and I'm going to share this because this is gem jewel. I remember getting on a plane going to California because I was going to be close by, probably like in Vegas somewhere, like, I'm going to swing over here, because you were having an event on the West Coast. You were expanding, you had an event on the West Coast. And I'm going to say this and then I'll back out of it. What people need to know, I wasn't on the agenda. When I had been speaking, and I'm saying this because Alfred is amping me up, nodding his head, because he knows how these things go. Certain people show up if they could be on the agenda, if they could be on a program, if you could fluff them up, build them up. But I remember swinging by just to support you. Just to support your LA. It was just a support. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna pop over here and then I'm gonna get back on this plane. And that's why you deserve this. That's why you are called to all of the women you are funding, you are developing. That's why you can, reach out to Alfred or others and have them support. So anyway, I just wanted to add that. I mean, what do you want to share? This is our last segment. And I mean, I just wanted to get that down here. And so people know, listen, when you see all of us doing business with the big brands, we have always all supported each other.
Yeah.
And all I'm going to add is the reason I'm so excited about what Dee said, and I just said this recently at an event. I just spoke at an event in DC at the Black Blockchain Summit. I said, I remember who shows up at the event just to be at the event because they really value the event and the organization, and who will only show up if they're going to be on the panel or if they're going to be a speaker and getting the award. And I don't trust the expertise. I don't trust the heart. I don't trust the intention of the people who will only show up if they're speaking or getting an award. Yeah. Because either you believe in the mission and the efforts of Boss Network, diversity age.
That's right.
The Black Enterprise Entrepreneur Summit or whatever. Either you believe in it, or you're just trying to exploit it and profit from it.
Absolutely.
I'll accept that from maybe a corporate sponsor. I understand they're not always in it for the right reasons.
Right.
We are supposed to actually be pouring into one another because that's when God's purpose is manifested. And so, I'm not petty in all things, but that's one of those areas I can get real petty.
Yeah, no, but the reality is those type of intentions, it always comes to light. Yes. Those people, especially when you do what we do, because we're in contact, I mean, the discernment is strong. We're believers, right? So you can see who's real and who's fake, for simple words. And so for me, it's always been, I trust my spirit, I trust the discernment, but I also know that I have a job to do. So, serving Black women, people told me very early, that's going to be a hard job. Black women this, Black women that. And I'm saying, like, that ain't me. That's not my spirit. And so I know that I'm going to attract the type of women that I am. And that's what I've done. I had a friend who recently asked me, he was like, you don't have a lot of like drama going on in your network. And I'm like, what for what? We're about business over here, and I'm like, I'm real clear on that. I mean, I was 29 years old when I started Boss, and I sent a newsletter to my team and to my network, letting them know, like, this is about business. We're not posting things about relationships. Y'all can talk about that at another network. Yeah. We are talking about business. We're talking about growing, investing in each other, and supporting each other. And that's what I wanted to do. And so those type of people who are drawn to that seriousness and really want to grow, they will stick by you. And those that are just there for the pictures or for the whatever, I mean, they're not going to be around in the long run. So yeah, what does it say? The wheatness hero will separate itself.
Oh yeah. So while we're in our final segments, I don't want to lose the opportunity for those in our audience who either already entrepreneurs but have never been plugged into the Boss Network, or they're new entrepreneurs and they want to start out, as being part of a support resource that can be valuable to them. What's the best way for people to engage with the Boss Network and the things that you're doing now? Again, post-pandemic, and Dee and I are so proud of you. Again, we talked. You and I talked during the pandemic. We went through changes during the pandemic, like everyone else. But because of your family, so we could talk about, girl, this happened. Yes. Cameka, this happened.
When my mom passed, Dee reached out to me. Like, it's family here.
Yeah, it's family here.
I can always call on either one of you all for just advice and support, and that means a lot. Like, you know who's really with you. Shout out to my good friend Tiffany Aliche. She had a traumatic experience this year, but she still sent me wind chimes in honor of my mother, even through her grieving. That's leadership. That's love. That's community.
I remember the way you reached out to me when our founder Earl Graves passed away during the pandemic.
Absolutely.
You could have been like, that's, okay, whatever. No, you're like, no, I know who that is and why that.
Yeah, I mean, you pioneer. I done seen the old school pictures of you at Black Enterprise. I know you've been there since day one. So, so when you care about people, you care, what matters to them matters to you, and that's what I learned when I had a mentor of mine ask me, how you doing? And I started talking about Boss. She said, pause. I asked, how were you doing? And so I love the fact that the people that because when you're leaders, you're like one track minded, right? But you can also get lost in that. And so I'm trying to really kind of like dismantle that hustle culture, even for myself, because I also, in pursuit of success, I deserve pursuit of happiness, right? And in pursuit of joy, and pursuit of peace, and pursuit of rest. And so in this season of my life, I'm trying to incorporate all those things, because the success really means nothing if you're not, really good here at the core. And so, I
that was another way God was in our ear during that pandemic.
Yes.
He put all that stuff down and was like,
and those who were listening or looking with that third eye, we understood what was happening. I wish more of us would have. I thought it would be a huge change, but unfortunately, everybody doesn't, get it. But the reality is we have to lean into those. And then we also have to support our leaders. I think that because I've just seen a lot of tragedy happen around leaders. And, I'm reminded to much is given, much is required. And so I love that, we have this community. I feel like there's a group of us that have watched each other grow these last 15 years that really truly care about each other and not the brands that we built. And that's important, right? Because we know outside of our community, that's what's happening. The deals are made at the golf course. The deals are made at, at the cigar bar. They're not made in boardrooms. And so, because people really care and invest in the person, not the business. And so I really love that I have a community that values who I am as a person and as a leader, and, wants to see me win in life, not just in business.
I love it. Listen, so did you share, as we close out, as we wrap for this final minute, where people can find you, what you want us to know and do with either the Impact Fund, Boss on Campus, anything? You got a minute to give it to them, and whatever you want us to know.
All right, Alfred, here's my elevator pitch. Okay, so here we go. I want to invite everyone to become members of the Boss Network, because we're doing incredible things for Black women. We have the Boss Impact Fund, and our second round of grants will launch on January, the middle of January. And this year, to close out, we will be partnering with JP Morgan Chase to give out some grants through our launch summit. So, we're doing incredible things around investing and also supporting through mentorship and coaching. So I invite them to, follow bossnetwork.org and get engaged, because I'm very clear. I invest in those that invest in me. We open it up to everyone, but I really want to support those women that have been riding this with me for a long time. And so, of course, with our grant program that we had, we invested in about 35 women. Maybe 10 of those women were members of the Boss Network, but the other 25 were just women who applied. And, I'm here for everything, just as long as it's Black.
So again, that's bossnetwork.org. Don't forget it.
Yes.
All right, everybody. It's Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life. We'll be right back. Wow. What a show. It's Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life. What an awesome interview, Alfred, with Cameka Smith. I'm always inspired by Black women and entrepreneurship, business ownership, growth. There was a growth story with Cameka. There was a come up story. And then what I love, we didn't talk a whole lot about it, but she's a solid woman of faith. So there's some faith elements. So there was just so much that was so rich. And I know anybody plugged in should be inspired and encouraged. If you are, have an entrepreneurial spirit, there's so many elements of inspiration, of being a parent and doing the best for your kids, and how you inspire, your kids inspire you around business. So it was such an awesome interview, the Boss Network, the founder and CEO, and how it is that she is supporting other businesses. What'd you think?
Well, first of all, when you're a powerful woman of God, and you are that, and Cameka is, you really have to talk about it. We didn't have to talk about it. It's so obvious that it speaks for itself, and that's true for you, and it's definitely true for Cameka. So yeah, everything you said. This is a show, and we know that our mission is to bless our audience with every show and every guest. But we can rest assured, we can go to sleep on our pillows tonight knowing people will be blessed by this show and by what Dr. Cameka Smith is doing and what she says and what she represents. But listen, you can catch this show and every show for Be Lifted Up Radio by going to beliftedupradio.com. You can also follow us on all the social platforms at B, the letter B, Lifted Up Radio on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and stay in tune and in touch with us. You're listening to Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. Thanks for joining us.